Joining me is Dr. Saeb Erekat, Chief Palestinian Negotiator and Secretary General of the Palestine Liberation Organization. Dr. Erekat, thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you for hosting me, Mohammed.
Let's start with the latest news. Last night, the Palestinian leadership held an emergency meeting at the request of President Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah. What came out of it?
It's the first time in 25 years, if I recall, that all Palestinian factions without exception were in the meeting, including Hamas, Jihad, PFLP General Command, others. Everyone was there. That's the first time in 25 years. Secondly, what came out of this meeting is a total realization of the dangerous step taken by the United Arab Emirates, which really undermined the concrete basis we're standing on, which is the Arab Peace Initiative since 2002, because the strategy was that once Israel withdraws from the occupied Palestinian Arab territory, there will be no. And then comes an Arab country to say, no, we will have normalizations and let's keep the Palestinian territories and Syrian territories occupied. How do you do? What was discussed was that who will follow and how to prevent countries from following this step.
Which countries are you expecting to follow, or at least you have your eyes on?
Any countries. I don't want any countries to follow. We're working so hard now. The basic ingredient for our strategy now is not to have any country follow, because this is a free of charge. This is a free of charge. And if countries want to make relations with Israel bilateral, they can stand up and say, we're abandoning the Arab Peace Initiative, we're abandoning the commitments of the Arab summits and so on. But let them not say that we're doing it for the Palestinians. They're doing it because there is a man in Washington called Jared Kushner now. He's linking those who breathe anywhere on earth with Netanyahu's blessings. You want to be off the terrorist lists as Sudan, you must meet Netanyahu. You want to be able to be against Iran, you must recognize Israel. You want to, everything to Kushner and to Friedman is on the hands of the servicing Netanyahu. Now this must stop. And the second setback that we have is that we have requested a meeting for the Arab League and requested a meeting for the Organization of Islamic Countries, and we did not get an answer yet. And
how do you interpret that? How do you read not getting an answer from the Secretary General of the Arab League, Mr. Ahmad Abul Ghait, or even from the Organization of Islamic Countries or Cooperation of Islamic Countries? This is something that it's unprecedented. It's never happened before like that, when a member of the Arab League requests an emergency meeting and no one talks.
The Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC, was established after the burning of Al-Aqsa Mosque in 1968. That's the purpose of its being. So the fact they don't even bother issue a statement about the Emirati step and reiterating their position of the Palestinian question and the Arab Peace Initiative and international law is not only strange. And the same thing to the Arab League. And I really, when I said that the Arab Secretary General, the Arab League Secretary General's job is not a state. His job is to follow the resolutions of the Arab summits, ministers, and work towards protecting them and implementing them. And we told him, you have an Arab country that broke with this. Why don't you issue a statement at least? And he refused, right?
Did you talk to him by phone?
I talked to his assistant, actually, and I sent him a written letter. And we sent letters to everyone else. And it's very unfortunate that the Emiratis are using every influence they have now, not only in the Arab League and the Islamic countries, in countries they know and so on. You know, the people who write, also many times, we call them the castle's writers. You know, there are those who just do what the castle wants them to write. But all of this, Muhammad, what does it do? What does it affect? What does it, when was the Emirate at a state of war with Israel? Were there two Emirati legions fighting with me in Jericho, Hebron, Gaza, and Jerusalem? that now they've made a peace with Israel and they want to withdraw and leave me alone. That's not the case. The case is a major blow to the standing point of the Arabs and Palestinians vis-a-vis the Arab Peace Initiative, the requirements of making peace. And it's a major victory scored by Kushner to poke me in the eye and to tell me, okay, you got 192 nations to say no to my plan, not to move the embassies to Jerusalem, but I got from your own house someone to stab you with a poisonous dagger in your heart. And he did.
So let's talk about Arab support. Do you think that the lack of Arab support following the announcement by Abu Dhabi, the lack of communication with the Arab League representatives, does this signal the end of Arab nationalism and end of popular Arab support for the Palestinian cause?
It's premature to judge this. It's really worrying. It's really a major development. It's not, and nobody should undermine the impact of the Emirati step in normalizing relations. Look at some of the tweets that their thinkers and young people are writing about Israel, praising Israel, saying how wonderful is Palestinian leadership are thieves and criminals and people who wasted their cause and so on. This signifies exactly the same way of thinking when the evangelical Zionist movement was born. So are we witnessing now the birth of an Arab Zionist movement? It's when we come to analyze issues, Muhammad, it's not the surface issues. It's not the surface. You can employ if I pay you to write, you're right. If you don't have a conscience, if you don't have a personality, if you don't have anything other than write what's imposed on you without conscience, without thinking, without anything, and that's what's happening now. That's what's happening now, and we don't want to. And have the Emiratis stood up and said, "Okay, guys, it's time to break with the Arab Peace Initiative, with the Arab League, with the Arab Peace Resolution. Our interest requires us to have relations with Israel," but they didn't mention us. They didn't say that we're doing it for the Palestinians. Okay, and the rest they can say, okay, you're out the parameters of the Arab resolutions and summits and Arab Peace Initiative. But to come and do this and accept to call it the Abraham Accord. The second point is that, number one is that when they say Abraham Accord, it means that Mecca is for Ismail and Jerusalem is for Ishaq. But the second point, that when they said we suspend extending sovereignty on Palestinian areas as specified in the Trump's plan, they say because we want to get more Arab countries and Muslim countries to do the mutual recognition with Israel. It means that the Emirates have become fully on board the Trump's plan and the Netanyahu plan. It seems, and that's what it translates to. Forget or cut all the nonsense. This is the issue here. The issue is now you have an Arab country that have adopted and is going through what Trump and Kushner says that's the best thing that could happen to Palestinians. Okay? Come here, boys. You must accept what we offer you. We're going to improve your life conditions. Yes, we annex Jerusalem. Yes, we're going to annex the Jordan Valley. Yes, we're going to annex 33% of your territories. Yes, you don't have rights to determination. Yes, we're going to control your international passages, territorial water, and airspace. Yes, we're going to have the overriding security responsibility, but we're going to improve your living conditions. Why should I do this? Why should I do this? I'm not going to do this. So what this agreement is killed any possibility of resumption of Palestinian-Israeli negotiation. It destroyed the possibility of state solution.
But Dr. Erekat, this isn't the first time that you and Palestinian officials have said that this latest step has killed any chance of future resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. What makes this different? I mean, it seems that your reaction, the Palestinian, it's almost a prepackaged reaction. It's the same thing that we hear every time some big news happens.
I don't know how you hear. Well, I mean, if you use your hearing skills, we've done this when we said we will suspend our relations with the United States when they recognize Jerusalem as its capital. And that's when they introduced their plan of 28th of January 2020. And we were right that they destroyed any possibility of peace. Because now what they're telling us, if you want to come back to negotiations, it's going to be on the basis of this vision. So why do you make it sound that I'm every day saying the same sentence? I didn't say that. I have recognized Israel. I have accepted international legality. I have accepted the resolutions of the UN Security Council, two-state solution, 67, and so on. And now, of course, the blame game is me. I'm the reason for not having peace. I'm the reason for saying no all the time. I'm the reason. I mean, I have recognized Israel right to exist in 78% of historic Palestine.
But if your methods of negotiations and if your negotiation ability in the last 25 years or even longer than that haven't really achieved what you aspire to, a Palestinian state in the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as capital of future Palestine, isn't it time to change your tactics? Isn't it time to change your strategy? Okay, it's not your fault. I'll give you that if you want. You know, if it's not your fault, don't you want to change the game plan? Don't you want to change your, the way you do business with the other side?
What do you think is happening? I don't have any relations with Israel now. I don't have any relations with the US. All agreements and understandings between us and the US and Israel are suspended. It's no longer there.
But the Israelis have no reason, there is nothing to bring or pressure the Israelis to the negotiation table or to even speak to you. They have no reason to do so.
No, I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to talk to them, not because I don't want to talk to them. We offer to talk to them on the basis of the contractual nature of agreements between us and them, meaning the objective of the peace process to end the occupation, establish a Palestinian state on 67 borders with East Jerusalem its capital. They refused. The Americans refused. Now they want us to negotiate on the basis of Kushner's vision for peace, which is one state, two systems apartheid. We're not going to do that. And I think you're right in a point that we cannot status quo no more. So I think the most probable scenario is that very soon you will see Netanyahu being responsible or having full responsibility from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean, as he did in 1992.
You told me that a couple of months ago when we had an interview regarding annexation just before July, and you said that soon, if annexation takes place, Netanyahu and Israel will assume responsibilities back in the West Bank. And 2 days ago, you said that doesn't mean the dissolving of the Palestinian Authority. So what exactly do you mean by saying Israel will assume responsibilities in the West Bank?
Okay, I'll speak very frankly and good English. When they dictate on us, which I believe they began by standing the first step in implementing it, when they start dictating on us their plan, it means they're destroying the Palestinian Authority. And we're not dissolving what we built. We're being destroyed. So please, that's what I asked you to distinguish 2 days ago between somebody destroying the Palestinian Authority, because the Palestinian Authority was born in a contractual agreement with Israel to transfer Palestinians from occupation to independence. Now Netanyahu and Kushner and the Emirates wants the Palestinian Authority to be a tool in maintaining the permanency of the occupation under the term one state, two systems, apartheid. This cannot happen. I'm telling you, once the Palestinian Authority is destroyed, Netanyahu would resume his full responsibility as the occupying power in accordance and the basis of the Fourth Geneva Convention, meaning in 1992, he paid salaries, he collected garbage, he ran the local government, and he will do the same. And I'm here. I'm going to be here. And I'm going to be interviewing you, but as a university professor. As I did before 90.
Mm-hmm. Does this announcement or deal between the United Arab Emirates and Israel weakens the Palestinian Authority further? You say that it's, the Palestinian Authority has been weakened by so many different decisions. But does this add to the weakness of the Palestinian Authority?
Much more dangerous than weakening. This is shifting the strategic stance of Palestinians. Because in one point, when we designed the Arab Peace Initiative, the Saudi initiative actually, and the Arabs endorsed it in 2002, in our negotiations, Israel knew that once they reach peace with us, they will have relations with all Arab countries. Now what the Emirates did, in accordance with what the wishes of Kushner and Trump and Netanyahu. No, خلاص. Forget about the Arab Peace Initiative. Let's have normalization with Israel. And they're telling us that there are many other countries that will follow. So, okay. And what this? And if Israel brings 193 embassies, what difference does it make to me? Mm-hmm. Does it? I'm the ground. I'm their problem. I'm what need to be solved. There is no state of war between Israel or any Arab country. Okay? There is nothing. I'm the fact on the ground. I'm what needs to be solved. Now, Netanyahu, if he wants to come and take over, he will. Not because we want to dissolve, but because he's destroying the Palestinian Authority, because we will never accept the role he's designing for us to be a tool in making the occupation permanent. So I hope I'm very clear. Yani, we keep repeating ourselves, explaining ourselves, and then every time somebody interprets it in his own way. And that's not fair.
Okay. How do you see the Arab Peace Initiative of 2002? Is it still the reference for the Palestinians and the Arab League? Is it still relevant now after what the United Arab Emirates did last Thursday?
Well, for the United Arab Emirates, it's no longer relevant. Because they are having diplomatic relations, changing ambassadors, having without, as Netanyahu told them, I did not move from a single inch of territory. I did not stop settlements. I'm not going to stop annexation. So if other Arab countries follow suit, I think this is the fall of the Arab Peace Initiative. This is the fall of the political system. This is the fall. Well, yani, if you're going to analyze this, and you say that maybe Israel will enable us to face the threats around us. Are you saying when you think that Israel will come to the help of any Arab country? There are 18 conflicts within and between Arab countries. And Israel breathes through these conflicts and disputes and differences. And they're going to continue doing it. And anyone who's going to count on Israel for their, whatever they say, our interest and so on, they're very, very, very short-sighted, but it's none of my business. None of my business. And my business is that when you want to do something, do it in your name. Don't do this and destroy my position with the Israeli. Weaken me in front of Netanyahu, and you heard his speeches afterward, openly. And you say you're doing me a favor? Stop it, please. And that's what we're saying. What we're simply saying, you're a sovereign country. I can't stand guards in your lips, in your way of thinking. You have, I have not. You can do whatever pleases you and influence this and prevent the Arab League from meeting, prevent the OIC from meeting, ordering the nations you donate to or you give money to issue statements welcoming your step. You can do whatever you want on all of this. But at the end of the day, what does this do? What does this do? Does that change? Back on the ground, I'm here and I'm here to stay. I'm the problem. I'm what they need to be solved. There is no Emirati-Israeli conflict. There is a Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So what they're doing now is killing Netanyahu, kill the two-state solution. He will never negotiate with me on the basis of two-state solution. He will never negotiate with me in accordance with the agreement signed. He will continue with the settlement activities, confiscation of land, war crimes against Palestinians, and he's rewarded. That's what really angers us. Why reward him? For what? He doesn't deserve to be rewarded. He's not worthy of reward. He's not worthy of your trust. He's a man that shouldn't be trusted. And you will realize, the Emiratis will realize this very soon. They will realize this very soon, very, very soon.
Dr. Erekat, President Mahmoud Abbas last Sunday phoned French President Emmanuel Macron. He wanted him to at least condemn this agreement on the basis that it will kill the two-state solution. But to the shocking or surprise of President Abbas, President Macron actually came in support of this deal and any other peace agreements between any other Arab countries and Israel. How disappointed are you from this position or of the French position? And do you think that if France and the European Union don't give you the support that you are asking for regarding this agreement, and if you don't hear from the Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Countries, do you feel isolated? Is President Abbas isolated in Ramallah? Is the Palestinian Authority isolated right now?
First of all, I was in a phone call between President Abbas and President Macron, and I don't know where do you get your information. It's true that France welcomed the bilateral relations between the Emirates and Israel, but at the same time, France said in an official statement by Macron and his foreign minister that the issue is Palestinian-Israeli, and the solution is through ending the occupation and the two-state solution. So did Germany. There was a statement from Borrell, the commissioner of the EU, saying the same. Russia, China, Canada, Australia, all countries on earth have said the same things. And in terms of the Emiratis stepped in defending themselves and in defending their position, they are isolating me by not allowing the Arab League to convene, by not allowing the Islamic countries to convene, by using influence with their countries around them that they're allies with. They are helping to isolate me further and further and further. But no, as I said, and at the end of the day, ignoring facts don't mean they don't exist. And we are the facts on the ground here. We are 50.9% of the population from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean as Palestinians. What are they going to do with us? Kushner and Friedman and Netanyahu are 49.1% of the population. The problem is not with the Emirates. The problem is not any country on earth. Their problem is me, a Palestinian. And without an end of occupation and a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital on the 6-7 border, no peace, no stability in this region. And what this agreement did was just to strengthen extremists in Israel, and as a matter of fact, in the Arab world also.
Dr. Erekat, how do you respond to the criticism that the Palestinian Authority foreign policy in the last 2 decades have been a failed foreign policy, that it achieved really nothing? Palestinians don't have their own independent state, and in fact, Palestinians are losing some of their traditional friends. Look at the rapprochement between Israel and India. African nations are getting closer to Israel. Latin America, which traditionally has been supportive of the Palestinian cause, this support is cracking. And now you have Arab nations, Arab states that are signing peace deal with Israel. How do you respond to the accusation that the PA's foreign policy has been a failed one?
And you have described India, China, Brazil. The nations are slaves to their interests. And they do things that serve their interests. But to come out with a conclusion that this means the failure of Palestinian diplomacy, because in the last 25 years, Palestine became a state. That's the legal status. The national identity of Palestine is an observer state at the UN. Palestine is a member of 117 bodies of the UN and agencies. Palestine is recognized, fully recognized, with East Jerusalem's capital by 141 nations on earth, more than Israel. And then just easily, because Muhammad wants to say, isn't it a failure for your diplomacy?
But Dr. Erekat, you don't have a sovereign state. You know, Palestinians still under occupation. You can't move from Jericho to Ramallah without permits from the Israelis.
I'm not debating you, I'm answering your questions. Let me finish, please.
Okay.
All I'm saying that nations are slaves to their interests. You know that the United States government now, the administration, Trump administration, is linking everything, especially the satisfaction of Netanyahu. Why would President Burhan of Sudan meet? What interests is there for Sudan to meet with Netanyahu? Sudan is in the international terror list, and they told him, we will remove you if you meet with Netanyahu. So I'm the price he has to pay. That's the strategic currency of Kushner now. The strategic currency is to pay for from Palestinian rights. The same thing with the Emirates. They think maybe as an existential threat to them or whoever, that's their business. And they bring Israel. Okay, but don't pay from my pocket. And don't call me a failure, because when the United States, a country with $20.5 trillion GDP, 25% of the world economy, a country can destroy Earth 400 times once and twice until the 400, a country that has so much influence, and a Palestinian state that's under occupation, that cannot pay even salaries for its employees. We stood tall. Who followed the US in recognition of Israel of Jerusalem as Israel's capital? Nobody. Who supported the peace initiative of Trump and Netanyahu? Before the Emirates decision, nobody. Emirates became the third party to have done this. So I'm not saying I'm perfect in my diplomacy, but I really appreciate that Palestine last year was elected to head the group of 77 plus China, 134 nations, 84% of the world's population elected Palestine, the observers nation, as the head of the 77 plus China. And with all these achievements, and you're telling me I'm isolated, if the Emirates decided to take a decision, that's what I call you. It's a poisonous dagger in my back. I'm not undermining it. I'm not belittling it. But don't, how do you reach the conclusion that it's because of my failure? Their failure.
Dr. Erekat, success is measured by accomplishments. So I am graded and I am evaluated by my accomplishments, just like anyone else. And with all due respect to the Palestinian Authority, to President Abbas and you, since taking office in 2005, and you've been the chief negotiator for many years now, your mandate was to bring, or at least achieve, an independent Palestinian state. That has not been achieved. It wasn't that your mandate was to become the president of the G77 or an observatory state at the UN. So that's how success is measured. But I understand that you're working hard at it. I'm just going to move to another issue, unless you'd like to answer. Go ahead.
Because you said that I could not get a Palestinian state, and the Israelis failed me, which is true. And the problem wasn't, the failure wasn't in the peace process or negotiations. You have Israeli governments that chose settlements and dictation rather than peace and negotiation. Once they did this, I shifted my policy. I went to the UN, became a member, a non-member state, an observer state, joined international organizations, and I wanted to pursue an international coalition with Palestine, with the two-state solution, the international law. And this was a major, major, major success, where I am a member of the International Criminal Court. I have a referral against Israeli officials in the International Criminal Court. I have a case in the International Court of Justice. I'm a member, as I told you, 117 protocol organizations worldwide. And then look at here, when we came as an authority to my Gaza or Jericho or Hebron, our schools under the Israeli occupation ran 3 shifts a day. 3 shifts a day. Today we run 1 shift a day. The things we did on the ground for our people in terms of our infrastructure. I was the Minister of Local Government for 9 years. 627 localities in the West Bank and Gaza when I took over in 1994 as a Minister of Local Government. 92% of them, any infrastructure, water, electricity, or anything. When I left office, 100% had everything. So, you can sit and just think of something and throw it in my face. What have you done? What haven't done? And so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. The issue is, did I fail in departing from the mandate of the negotiations? Was it my failure that I said no to the Israelis when they wanted to say Jerusalem is off the table? Was it my failure that I said refugees have the right to return? Was it my failure to say that international law specifies the following? So it depends on how you failure. I don't remember any minute in my life without being pressured with everything I have in order to defeat what the international law has designed for me as my rights. So, and then, you're absolutely right. You sit down and say, I want tangible, haven't achieved the Palestinian state, as if it's my mistake. I've done everything in the book to achieve a Palestinian state. I have the whole world supporting me, meaning I have 141 nations today, including the latest was the Vatican and the Kingdom of Sweden, who recognized Palestine with Jerusalem as capital as on the 67 borders. So you can't. Yeah, I hear this, and I know that many people. It's because of you that the Emirates did this. It's because of you there is the acceleration of settlement. No, that's really not. That's not fine. That's not fine to take the blame from the occupation, from the failures of nations like the Emirates, and blame it on me. Trying to have peace for my people is not a crime. Trying to save lives of Palestinians is not a crime. Trying to build a nation state and achieve independence through negotiations and international law is not a crime. The crime is the criminals is those who are managed to sabotage the efforts to achieve a two-state solution through peaceful means.
Dr. Erekat, it's not you personally who is in question. It's the policy and the strategy. Moving to the last question, Dr. Erekat, Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz asked and called on his military to restore security coordination with the Palestinians. There are some 25,000 newly born Palestinian babies without documentations, and they cannot travel anywhere. Will you be forced to restore security coordination with the Israelis under any circumstances anytime soon?
No, I think it's very soon this problem will be solved once Netanyahu and Gantz take over full responsibility for Palestinians. They will register people and they will give permissions to people and they will be paying salaries to people and in charge of people, because what they're doing is destroying the Palestinian Authority. So when we said that our contracts with Israel is about giving independence and two-state solution, I don't think I recall that I signed with them that my job as a Palestinian Authority is to change the conditions or improve lives. My job was to get freedom and independence for the Palestinian people. And if you're worried about 25 Palestinian children being very soon, he'll be in charge and he'll be able to register them all.
Dr. Saeb Erekat, Chief Palestinian Negotiator, Secretary General of the PLO, thank you so much for taking time of your busy schedule to speak with me.